of want our episodes to start like New York Undercover. It's the intro song to the crime that happens at the beginning.
Yeah, those were heavy too.
Ladies and gentlemen, this time around, the revolution will not be televised.
Williams and Torres, we back. Do that black guy thing where I always play the keys, but I'm not a pianist at all. But I always feel like I'm playing the music.
I do that too.
When I was sleeping on the train, sleeping on Mesereau Lab out in the rain, without even a single slice of pizza to my name. Too proud to beg for change, mastering the pain. When New York was calling Southern rappers lame, but then Jack and I slang.
Hey there, hi there, ho there. You all are on the air with Zan and Stuart C. with the Lunch Break Podcast. This is episode what? 6?
Episode 6.
Episode 6. We are doing it. We're out here on our 6th episode. That's half a dozen.
We're getting there, man. We're getting there. Cranking them out.
No, it's look, this is gonna set the tone for the episode. I didn't even intend to speak to this, but today's episode will be called Timmy Fell Down the 5 Wells, Lassie. I think that's what we're calling it.
Timmy fell down the well, Lassie. Did he, girl?
Lassie, and that is not from 1955 Lassie, right? Who was that? Michael Keaton?
That was Michael Keaton. Yeah, it was. So I was looking for the drop that we wanted to use. I couldn't find it, and I found one of these like videos that was going through the importance of Lassie during the time and how it permeated culture. And so it was like Big Bang Theory had a scene where he talked about, The Simpsons had an episode where they talked about Timmy falling down the well. And then Michael Keaton had used the line in a movie. He was trying to mock somebody who was trying to make it seem like something was a big deal. So, yeah, I went down a rabbit hole.
No, so today's episode, you all, is called, it's related to the 5 wells. And we'll get into what those 5 wells are here shortly. But one of the 5 wells is being well-read, being well-spoken. Stuart just exhibited both of those, although his well-read in this moment was reading whatever the Wikipedia links and the rabbit hole took him down today. Yep. But still, this idea of today's episode will be around how Morehouse has shaped us as men, and specifically one item of Morehouse culture during our matriculation at the institution, where we shifted to a new pillars, I would call them, principles or tenets of what a Morehouse man should be. And those things were the 5 wells. So we'll be talking about that today. And it's funny, though, because I came up with the random Lassie thing, and Stu I guess you had no prior knowledge of Lassie, right? But just intellectual curiosity took you down this rabbit hole now.
Yeah.
Well, I knew about Lassie. I had no prior knowledge, but not any like, right?
No.
Stu ain't never even seen Lassie. He had no TV in his house growing up, impoverished.
No, I knew Lassie, but I mean, you gave me enough that I could go find it. You know what I'm saying? So I just kind of made it work.
Yeah. So Lassie's from 1955.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd imagine we're not supposed to really be talking about Lassie, but I'd
it was
imagine
black and white and everything. It was wild.
Yeah. So I'd imagine it was one of those shows where they actually just didn't have. So I can see that they're saying it was a huge impact to culture, but I don't think they had that many shows back then. It was like limited. You got Lassie, Leave It to Beaver, maybe the Honeymooners came a couple years after that or something. Like all the stuff that used to be on WB11. Yeah, Ralph Crampton was a wild boy.
To the moon, Alice.
It was basically the Flintstones on television, live action Flintstones. Basically the same premise. Yeah. All right. So there doesn't even make sense for us to talk about the weekend now. We intended to start talking on the podcast about what we did this weekend.
Let's talk about it, man, because you had a lot going on this weekend. So
yeah, what did you tell me that you did today when we first got on the call earlier?
Got ready for this, ate, and cleaned the bathroom. That's what I did today.
It was not at all what I was expecting you to say. He just completely lied to you folks, because what we actually talked, and he did say those things, although you left out the bathroom cleaning when we first spoke. So, but he said he paid bills today.
I did pay bills today too. That's right. Yes,
that was like the only thing he said. He said none of the other stuff. Said, man, I paid these bills today. He was looking exhausted. So we were wearing this. I'm gonna shamelessly plug my brand. We were wearing this True Luck Charm stuff with Worth Over Wealth all over us. and we are exhausted every time we pay a bill. So just know that being worth everything, all the things that are levied on our shoulders, it is heavy. That boy Stuart was like, man, pay these bills.
Pay the bills today.
That's all I did. I'm exhausted. I had to take a nap after that. I've been on that couch, sleep.
I did though.
See, in that big, beautiful home, man, you got to enjoy the luxuriating in the fruits of your labor, bro.
Indeed.
And in a near-term episode, since we said this is episode 6, in an episode before we hit our 10 episode mark, we intend to talk about being first-time homebuyers. So that's a slight preview for the future. All right, man, you pay bills. I just got home at, pardon me, y'all. I got home at 10 a.m. today, Central. And we pushed the podcast recording back 2 hours. I was being really sporty. I told Stu, yeah, man, let's keep our normal time of 12 p.m. We had to move it a few days because I just got back from New York, laying my sister to rest. And a beautiful celebration of life, by the way. And we were supposed to record earlier. I didn't sleep at all last night. I rushed today. I did the dash. This is part of being well-traveled, which is also one of the 5 wells.
The dash.
I left downtown Brooklyn at 4:35 really. So I left the hotel and started heading for LaGuardia at 4:35. It's supposed to be like a 20-minute ride to LaGuardia, but I had to return the rental car. So I get, and then
always gets me.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna flame Avis right here. You know, I'm Avis preferred and all of that, but on the record, right? In case our podcast ever blows, I want this to be known about Avis. So Avis in New York is different. It's not like other Avis in New York is New York. So you pull up into the spot. I'm never on the Avis preferred board for some reason, even though I'm Avis preferred in LaGuardia. Like their processes and logistics just don't work the same as every other Avis around the U.S. So and there wasn't we, it was me. So I'm walking into the joint and the shuttle driver, when I first get off the shuttle bus, because, you know, LaGuardia is a logistical nightmare. So
yes, it is.
I get off the shuttle bus to go to from Terminal B. You got to take a shuttle that passes Avis. It literally passes Avis on the way and then goes 4 walking minutes away from Avis around the corner to have you take another shuttle to Avis. That's so annoying. And I'm freezing in the cold waiting for it. It's like 40 degrees, but I live in Texas, so it's cold. And the guy the shuttle driver, I'm like, well, are you driving? Because he's outside just smoking a cigarette. I'm like, dude, it's freezing. The people have pulled up. Like, are you actually an operating vehicle right now? He said, oh, you want to get on? Sure. Come drive me there. He makes the call to get me put on the preferred board. He's like, are you preferred? I looked at my app. I said, yes, but it's not in here. It doesn't show me where my vehicle stall is. So he calls on the way or radios in to get me my car ready. I get excited about that. I thought that was great customer service in that moment as he was stinking, smelling like a Marlboro 100. So, so we get there and my name's on the board. Cool. CO4. These are details you all don't need, but CO4 is my slot. I get in, got an Altima. I can move around the city in that. I get in, the car smells like talcum powder. Like they had the sticker that said it was disinfected with Lysol, but you could tell that no one actually cleaned that car because it was filthy. And they just did something with the scent to just cover the scent that was in there. So, I mean, it smelled nice, right? But nobody even signed the disinfecting certificate. So, you know, like somebody's supposed to put their name that or you go in a bathroom somewhere, cleaned by so-and-so at this time today. So none of that was actually true. I'm pulling off. I do the express pass exit. You're supposed to just be able to scan and exit. The guy's like, you got the paperwork? I'm like, no, there's no paperwork. Why don't you know how your processes work? And then I get around the corner and the car is not even full tank of gas. So all of that, I'll get off my trip. I went to the funeral. I just flamed Avis for like 5 minutes. Clearly that really viscerally affected me. I'm sorry.
No, it honestly, whenever an aspect of your trip doesn't go the way it needs to, it definitely messes. I don't like illogical things. Like I like things to work the way they're supposed to. If you say you're going to clean this car, please clean this car. And depending on how much time I have, I will be like, no, I want another vehicle. I will be that person. And
that's the thing. It's legitimately New York minutes, right? Every minute counted. Yeah. And I was extremely excited to get to my slice of pizza because that's all I had to do that morning. I'd had nothing else to do but get to that slice of pizza. So to look back to the intro song, right? J Electronica Exhibit C. And in that song, he starts like, when I was sleeping on the train, sleeping on Milieu Ave out in the rain without even a single slice of pizza to my name. That's we were thinking about that earlier. We were talking about that. And the reason we selected that song actually is just manifold. So you have the fact that in the intro, they say, "Oh, 09, mother, such and such." I know I'm cursed. So we graduated from Morehouse in
09.
Yeah, I just like to get your voice in between mine. That's why I picture that. And then
that was a taboo trick right there, guys. That's how we get it done.
And then also you have Jay Electronica, and back to setting the stage for these 5 wells. I think it's appropriate time now to get into that. So you have Jay Electronica, who I thought is one of the most well-spoken rappers, which is an interesting thing, given that you have to be well-spoken or crafty with words in general to be a rap artist. But what he does in that song, and I think everybody flips out about the Jay Electronica, Jay Elect Harmonica, like the yarmulke, like that's what blew people's minds. His ability to do that verbal cadence, the words that he chose, it was clear in what he was saying, and in most of his stuff, like a lot of his raps prior to his actual album from his original mixtapes are like film scores, and it's just beautiful in the scenes that he paints and the things that he pulls in. You can tell that he's also well read, well versed in so many things. You get that balance. And Morehouse, as we were saying earlier, we ushered in a new college president halfway through me and Stew's matriculation. We went from Walter Massey to Dr. Robert Franklin, and Dr. Franklin brought in those 5 wells and ushered in a new idea of a Morehouse man being a Renaissance man with a social conscience. Those 5 wells, which Stew, hit the people with what the 5 wells are, man.
The 5 wells are well-read, well-spoken, well-traveled, well-dressed, well-balanced.
You know, I always forget the well-dressed one for some reason.
I mean,
it's a weird thing.
A whole LPD class.
I didn't take that. You got to define acronyms. What does LPD mean?
Leadership and professional development is a class that we had to take at Morehouse. Not all of us, evidently.
Like 85% of y'all did. I went economics, so I didn't have to take the really hard things that people took,
business
like
policy.
The business administration stuff. I don't know. We didn't have. My classes were mentally taxing, but the things that you all went through, and see the fact that I even said that, the things that you all went through. Yeah. And that's one of the differentiators in the brotherhood that we have forged at Morehouse, is because we go through an experience together. Yeah. And that shared lived experience forges a bond that's really unlike any other. And, while I did say earlier, just kind of connecting back to what I did over the weekend quickly, while I did say earlier I buried my sister, I didn't meet my sister until I was 16. She's a half sister. We don't have to go into all of that. But I was raised as an only child is why I bring that up. And Morehouse is where I inherited all of my siblings. And it reminds me of, right, what does family really mean, and what does that construct mean? And I've been challenged with that even this weekend by going to visit a side of my family I've never seen before. So I show up at a Jamaican funeral. Stu's is an immigrant, a first-generation American. I'm like a half first-generation American. So my dad's an immigrant, but I was not raised in a home with him. As I noted before, my father was in prison for 30-some-odd years of my life. So I got to meet his side of the family this weekend. And my sister actually went, I think I said this before, went to Clark, Atlanta, but she was the full-blooded first-generation American. So let me just shout her out real quick, because both her mom and dad are Jamaican, and she is the child of immigrants and made it to the highest level academia in America. So she was Dr. Tati Benjamin.
Gotta clap that up. That's no easy feat.
Yeah. And everybody there clapped it up and all of that. But I don't even remember where I was going with this, actually, man. And maybe that's part of and I'm going to be vulnerable in this moment, y'all. Maybe that's part of not pushing yourself sometimes when you go through experiences that can, shift you and really make you take a beat and take a seat to figure out how exactly you feel. So my thoughts may not be as linear today as I would like them to be, because of what I just experienced, and I'm still processing, and I'm trying to compartmentalize to be present on the pod today. And we really do want to deliver the stuff about the 5 wells, but I was talking about siblings.
Yeah. I was going to bring it back.
Man. I just I appreciate that. Just let the people know where my headspace is, man. We're a different type of podcast. We're real human beings. So we should be able to tell people, we got things going on. Similarly, like you're about to go tomorrow to take your little brother.
Taking my brother to St. Louis.
Raised as an only child.
Yep.
But
exactly.
You have a brother. So
I have a brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Taking him to St. Louis to kick off his life, man.
Yeah. Which I wish I would. Don't you kind of wish you had that too? Like, I feel being able to go test the city out, make sure you pick your apartment.
Have someone that's experienced this and gone through this. I'm leaving an HBCU to go to corporate America and start my life. You're about to be a Sherpa in a way that I never had.
Yeah. But me neither. That's why I went back to New York. It was familiar.
Right. So we got all our siblings through Morehouse, and obviously that is where Stew and I met. So we graduated in 2009. We met in 2005, and maybe back to the 5 wells, right? So one of those was well dressed, and that's kind of funny. We can talk about how me and Stew really, it wasn't even going there yet, but how we got cool, I call it. So I don't know if you remember this. This is weird because it sounds like a dating story now. You remember when we first met?
Hey, remember how we first met?
So this is weird, y'all. This is, so Stew act not in the dating story type of thing, but I will say Stew made our password to one of our podcast related logins, something like Stewie and Zanny forever 05. And I was like, why do you have the date that we met as our password?
Couldn't think of anything at the time, man.
I thought it would be funny, man. And I was like, no, why do you have a celebrity couple password?
It sounds like a cloud photo album title.
So hitting on the well-dressed, I am, for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, it is no surprise that I am a sneakerhead. You will see behind me, also behind Stuart, there are sneakers. We kids, what's the Nas line? The streets raised me up, giving I won't say that curse word. I thought Jordans and a gold chain was living it up. That's what we come from. So
you got more sneakers than I do. I got the Junior Varsity sneaker collection.
And that's what it was. But that's how we met.
Yeah.
So everybody was wondering, I started school a little late and I missed all of new student orientation and back to that forging of the bond and the brotherhood. And Morehouse just puts you in a system and indoctrinates you and brainwashes you and teaches you a bunch of songs and folklore. And then everybody's bought into the same ideal or the same ideals. Yeah, they do an incredible job, and everybody tries to rise to the crown that Mother Morehouse puts above their head. Right. It is, I mean, the best system of indoctrination that you can ever find. And funny enough, I actually told some students while I was mentoring, doing some recruiting for Boeing, I was talking to the students and in Dr. Malik's class, shout out to Dr. Rubina Malik. Yeah. So I was talking to some of those students and I told them I'm really good at being institutionalized. And they completely misunderstood what I was saying, even though I expanded on it and gave the context. And I was telling, well, Boeing, corporate America in general, Morehouse, the higher education system, these are institutions that you're going into. And once you figure out the system in that institution and how to navigate that system, it makes your life easier and better. So I was really good at understanding systems and my brain works in that way. So I knew to go sit in the front of the classroom. And by sitting in the front of the classroom, I would be more engaged. That teacher sees me raising my hand and always being engaged in classroom. And if I'm on the cusp of an A- and an A, them knowing how engaged I am, how much effort I put in, that I'm always in class, they see that face, they know true luck. Was Glenn Rube Ross's statement. Dr. Ross.
Mine like a bear trap, true luck.
but that's from, and now I got bears all over my clothing. Synchronicity. But that's why I was always engaged. And I was like, well, I know the system now. I've seen this works with all of the teachers. And in that idea, it's the play. It's the system, right? Yeah. And you learn that at Morehouse, man. So what are some of those lessons? I'll transition a bit from, I guess we'll start here. Which of the 5 wells resonated with you most once you got there? So list them off again for us, please, and then hit us with which one.
Yeah, well-read, well-spoken, well-dressed, well-balanced, well-traveled. I think for me, the balance portion was the one that I think even in that time to now is the one that I feel like I have the most trouble with, is the one that I probably focused on the most, especially coming from like a high school environment where it was like, you got to be a balanced student. You know, I was on SGA. I was the vice president of our student class. I ran track. I played football. You know, I was in TV production. I did all this stuff to be balanced. You know what I'm saying? I think in college, it was like, all right, well, what are those things going to be? You know, knowing that being able to pay for college won't be as easy, and I'll probably have to work at a certain point. So the balance just looks different. But it was the one that I probably focused on the most because it was the one that I felt like I would have to work at. I think in my mind, if I did that stuff right, whatever I needed to get done after school, the rest of it would come, the well-dressed part, the well-traveled part, because I would have those resources that I created for myself to be able to do those things. So yeah, I would say that was the one that really hit me. I mean, this one, again, to this day, like taking break, self-care, that kind of stuff is almost always under well-balanced in my mind.
Yeah. So I'm gathering I like how you said that one fed others. And we talked about it earlier. It's basically like a catch-all bucket.
Yeah,
after you've been the other 4 wells, you should be well balanced. Right. But I like that you went and attacked the one that would have the highest impact, because the other things would then kind of, to be punny here, come into balance after you've gotten the well balance established. And what you made me think about when you listed off the well dressed will come. I didn't finish the story of how we met.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So 2005. I'm the kid that missed the orientation. Everybody's wondering who's the kid with the weird name, Antoine Trueluck, that we keep hearing get called on roll, but not showing up at the dorm meetings.
At the dorm meetings.
Yeah. Then like,
Sale Hall, baby.
And y'all, I arrived, like when they talk, I'm not trying to, I'm about to liken myself to Jesus, but not in a blasphemous way. So when they talk about, when they talk about Jesus riding into the city on a donkey. So when I get to Morehouse, me and my mom had just shown up. I think we rented a car to drive from Baltimore to Atlanta. So it was like a 12-hour drive. Yep. We drive down, no suit. Like all we had was a Foot Locker full of my sneakers. Like the only things that mattered to me were my sneakers. And that's really how Stew and I met. I'll get there in a bit. But a Foot Locker, and this is the days when students really had Foot Lockers, is dating ourselves now. We didn't even have bedding for my dorm room bed. We didn't have funding. We weren't certain that I could start school. So we were going door to door, knocking, calling in favors to people. We used to attend Empowerment Temple, Jamal Bryant's church in Baltimore before he now pastors New Birth in Atlanta. And we're calling Jamal saying, go talk to Dean Lawrence Carter. And that's how I ended up in that Religion 401 class freshman year, my first semester, is because Dean Carter was one of the people who helped me understand how to navigate that Boeing system and find funding to even stay there. And funding was a pervasive struggle throughout my entire time at Boeing. Sorry, throughout my entire time at Morehouse, y'all. I think I'm well funded at Boeing. So
you better be. It's been a long time.
Yeah. But at one point in time, it was an issue. We'll get there later. So Amen. We had we were coming from no means really. And that's another thing that I think is important when I get into the the one well that I gravitated towards the most, which is travel, because I didn't have the means to travel. So we get there and just finally setting the stage. My bedding for my bed freshman year came from Family Dollar. Now, you all know nothing in Family Dollar, like not Dollar Tree, so it is different. It's a little more upscale, but there's nothing in Family Dollar that costs more than like $5 though. So I had a $5 comforter on my bed that we just got last minute, just trying to make something happen. Like all we know is you got into the school. We're just trying to get you here to start. And then I'm in this room by myself because I'm so late. There are no other, there were no other rooms really. They just had an extra room and everything else was filled up. So I'm there by myself and I pushed both my twin sizes together. Yes, I had this California King in there. I'm living good. Got my, speaking of King, got my King magazine posters all over the world, like a nasty little 17-year-old I was. And then I have all of my fitted hats. This is 2005. So I'm New York Yankee hat out in every flavor and color. And then
pinwheel and solid.
Look at how sharp Stew's memory is. It was a pinwheel. It was seersucker. It was a seersucker, like light blue and white seersucker joint. Yeah, Yankee fitted out, and then just a bunch of Nikes. And I had just finished working in the mall from the semester before, or summer before, as a high school student. So I had a good little collection of kicks. Stu walks in. He was like, "Man, let me get some shoes, man." I don't even remember what made you knock on the door. I'm like, who's the little guy with the glasses? Like, hey man, let me get some shoes. And like, just walked in, made himself at home, started looking around, like lifting up my hats on the desk and stuff. Oh, you're 714? Me too, man. And we were probably not, like, we probably were wearing hats way bigger than our actual head was.
Absolutely, because we wearing a do-rag under. Yeah, of course.
It's 2005, and maybe like some people were wearing paper towels 2 years before. It was a weird era.
Weird.
So walks in, looking around, kicking it, like, and a super cool dude, right? We're still friends to this day.
Yep.
And but the shoes you like the most, I had these blue and orange dunks.
The Knicks joints.
Stu is a huge Knicks fan.
That's right.
And like, to the point where after those dunks were long and gone, and Stu's like a half size smaller than me in shoes. So he could never wear the kicks that I had. But as soon as I don't remember what happened to those shoes, but he would talk about them even years later, just like, yeah, man, them Knicks joints, bro. And I don't really think they were that fly, to be honest, but maybe that was the beginning of our well-dressed journey.
If I could find them today, I would buy them right now. Not gonna lie to you. Man.
All right, so you said you started with what you gravitated towards well-balanced most.
Yeah.
I think for me, I gravitated towards well-traveled. Mm-hmm. So at first I was looking at it where well-read was probably the one where my sliders were already up on that one. I had the most aptitude in well-read. And interestingly enough, so Stu and I actually stayed in the honors and scholarship dorm. That's important to note. So Graves Hall alum. Yeah. Graves Hall 3rd floor for you, right?
Yes, sir.
Graves Hall 4th floor for me. And in that dorm, you're around the smarties. That's all the kids at school who got scholarships or were in the honors program. And while I was broke and didn't have any funding because I applied to college very late. I applied in February. I applied in February of the year we started. So I did not get funding, but I was in the honors program. So I was in the honors dorm. And we are in the dorm with the smarty-arties, and we're sitting there, and I felt like I had some of the stuff already. And this is even before we learned what the 5 wells were. But because we're in the honors dorm, we're taking honors classes and all that stuff. So in my honors coursework, a lot of the books we were reading, I had already read. So like, okay, maybe the 5 wells I'm solid there. You know, I read a lot by the time I had got to school. And then when we talked about well balance, as you noted, like that's a thing that you have to work your entire life. But for me, it was really, and I also felt like I excelled at being well spoken. And I want to talk there as the next question, actually. But when I thought about well traveled, I hadn't been anywhere in my life. Yeah. Right? Like I gave a little flash of what I was coming from. I had been up and down the East Coast in the car, and when my mom was hustling, and I don't want to make it sound like she was like big meats trafficking when I say hustling. My mom was sweatsuits up and down the turnpike. So let me just be very clear when I say that for the record. So I didn't say she was trapping, but my mom's a hustler. So she was making a dollar and making things work up and down. That's the most exposure I got was going to like Greensboro or. Right. You know, all of that up and down 95. But I had never been anywhere in my life. And interestingly enough, you know, college is supposed to be a socialization opportunity where you get to see and expand your mindset, and especially undergrad, because I don't, and maybe even MBA programs as well, truly, but it gives you more exposure to things in life, period. And I got to see more in my life, and I'm so balanced, and I've been exposed to so much because of Morehouse and also because of the sacrifices of my mom. So I want to honor that in this moment, that if I've seen much more than my mom, I believe at this age. And that is because she sacrificed so I can go do that. And it's interesting because at times, and this is another tangential thing going back to family, this might be the family episode, but at times I find it difficult when I've gone back to like relate with my family or relate with people in the neighborhood when you've gone away to school. It's like, no, we still have to. Yeah, like talk about that. What's that been like for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I would say at the end of the pandemic, I actually ran into some friends from when I went to school in Brooklyn, from St. Catherine, that I knew from second through like 4th grade, and. You know, it was like, yeah, we remember when you moved to Maryland. All the way, we didn't even know what happened to you. I had no idea you were back in New York. And they were like, so what you been up to? It was like, went to college, went to Morehouse. Like, yo, you went to Morehouse, yo? That's crazy. And these are guys that, like, after high school, you know, some of them didn't finish high school. And some of them went to high school and just worked. Like my boy Stan worked at Chase this whole time. So it was just interesting because they just took they just wanted so badly to kind of live vicariously through my experiences, because they were like, "Damn, you was in Atlanta too? Like, I know that was crazy. Like, tell me something about that experience."
And you feel like a superstar a little bit, right? Like, you're just living your normal life. But, yeah, like exactly. But I never understood. Now what's coming to mind is the ghetto superstar thing. And I never really felt like that. And I didn't understand it because I was just, to me, it was, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Right. And it's not that they didn't do, like, I just chose this path that was laid out for me at home, and I didn't really have any other choice, I felt. So I'm just doing the thing. But I didn't realize how, I hate to say the term unique, but the opportunity was not the same opportunity for other people. And they did not teach. Yeah. So it was just, I did not realize the uniqueness in that journey until you're back home, and like I'm sitting in the barbershop with my cousin City. He's like, "Yo, you went to you out there in Atlanta," and this is so City and them from the Marcy Project. So just to give a shape to their just the experience that they went through, right? So City, but business owner, all type of stuff. City's like, "Yo, you went to Morehouse," and I'm like, "Yeah, man." And I said something about, I think he was trying to ask me at the time. This was like 10 years ago now or more, but he was trying to ask me something about, he likened Morehouse to Spelman. I was like, nah, Spelman's an all-girl school. And City goes, since when? And I'm like, okay. So like people don't, so to your point about it's in Atlanta, there's just so much about Morehouse that people do not understand. And then you add that layer of mystique on top of it. And it's just, that's what we're here to do today. Also, it's maybe another demystifying episode. Yeah. But, all right. So we talked about the relating thing, just closing it out on well-traveled. I gravitated towards that one with just complete avarice. And I wanted everything that I had in the world with respect that the world had to offer me with respect to travel. Once I found out that study abroad was a thing, and I actually didn't get to go do study abroad. Once I found out that companies would fly you to other cities, and I just wanted to do all of that.
Yep.
So the idea of well-traveled and what traveling would do to expand your mindset and expand your opportunities, I was all in on that. But I didn't, well, we said earlier, we didn't leave the country for the first time until 2014. So well after graduation.
Well, as an adult, yeah. Well, as a child, I was in London for 2 years.
Right.
Came back before my 5th birthday. So
So Stew was cultured.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even say.
But I mean, slight flex. I mean, I've been in London. I had a grandma in London. Like,
I had an English accent and everything. Came back to Brooklyn, got crushed at school.
Oh,
and it was
so
like,
well dressed.
Change the way I
well dressed because you was a British Knights kid.
I was a British Knights kid. I did wear British Knights. Yes, sir.
Matheson got on British Knights like it's 1987.
Matheson.
All right,
that line in that movie really killed me because I was like, I used to rock British Knights, B.
Yeah, and all of Stewart's baby photos. He got the BKs on with the.
Yeah, I might find one and put it up on the IG.
We need to. Hey, y'all, it is not easy maintaining content for an Instagram.
No, it is not.
All right, so I want to stick on the well-traveled thing for a bit as well, and I think for me it was interesting because, as I said, I didn't come from means, and when you get to Morehouse is a melting pot of blackness, which may sound a little. It may sound confusing, or it may sound my brain is not working today. So there's a word that's the two just do not mesh, right?
It's literally a personification of the phrase "Black people are not a monolith," because everyone's circumstance is different. You got people whose parents were the first employees at certain companies, so they come from me. Like it's like, Dad, you didn't send me the check to pay for school. And they like, okay, I'm gonna put it on your debit card. We're talking like $20,000. Go swipe it. Like it's wild. And then you got people like me and Zan who, we're in Gloucester Hall. We knocking on doors. We talking to Dr. Stott or Mr. Stotts. We're talking to we trying to get money from. We looking in the couch cushions, fam. Like literally trying to find
your coffers.
Man, I mean, everything and anything we could do, we were doing those things. And to your point, navigating the system. Our classes would get dropped. We'd have to write it down and then go be on the roster until we show up, until our money come through and we're financial. Like that like first like 3 weeks of school was always super stressful every single semester.
And that's the HBCU experience I've learned. It's not just Morehouse.
It happens everywhere.
And that needs to get better.
I agree.
In part though, it does help us for a world where you have to be able to sing for your supper. You have to, that is the world that we're in. We are not going to get appropriately resources, Black people. And, even especially in the pathway that we're talking about, because like Stu saying, Blackness is not a monolith, and certainly not a monolith with respect to socioeconomic status. So there were students at the school who, like, I remember meeting kids from Martha's Vineyard. I was like, wait, what? You live on Martha's Vineyard? Like, that's a real place? Well, yes. Shout out to Meacham. Yeah. What's his first name?
That's
Wade?
Great.
Wade Meacham?
Wade.
That sounds like a brother who lives in
Martha's Vineyard. Yes. Nothing
Wade
about
Meacham.
that surprised me.
I had never met so many Black people who had names like Theodore and Mortimer and things. Like it was just, there was so much. Well, Mortimer's a Jamaican thing. But but yeah, it was just I have so much reverence for that experience in general, and you're getting all of these people who are adding their experience and adding to your life and showing you that Black people can go and do these things. They're just more than the stereotypes or the archetypes that are out there of Blackness right now. So the well-traveled was me. I'm in on it. And we didn't. So Stu grew up in London, basically. He's British. So 36 Savage over here, because your birthday's in 2 days. So 36 right. Savage over here. Grew up in London. So happy early birthday, bro.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
As is typical of me, I have not bought your birthday gift yet. It dawned on me today. I was like, oh man, his birthday's in 2 days.
I ain't going nowhere.
But it'll be dope when you get it.
I appreciate that.
So, well-traveled was what I gravitated towards. And I did not grow up in London like 36 Savage. So my first time leaving the country as an adult, but leaving the country in general, what I'm reminded of in this moment is in Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. He talked about his first time going to Paris. And fantastic book, by the way, y'all. Back to being well read. Make sure you go pick that up if you haven't. It is a Black classic already, and it's only been out maybe a decade and a half, even.
Yeah.
So
it's a must read.
It's a must read. Yeah. And in that, he, in short, pitch for it, it's basically he pens a letter to his teenage son explaining what it's like to be a Black man in the world. And that's really the best way to summarize it. And it's incredible, and it shows the experience of Black men from all different facets of life. It's so relatable, and it's extremely universal. So
I think it hits a little bit different for you and I because we never had that guidance as it pertains to that kind of passing down of
mentorship
stories.
in book form. Yeah,
exactly. And so for us, it's like for us, it has a stronger impact for us because I think that's something that we've always kind of wished we had. Like I'll tell you right now, like as a Black man, as a younger Black man, I was trying to be. It almost felt like I had to draw from inspirations for how I wanted to be the best Black man I could, right? Because most times you get that from, your father or, maybe even your uncles. And I've got some of that from my uncles, but getting such a very vivid description of the world as he saw it through his lens and how he kind of wanted to pass along little gems of things to not be surprised about when they cross your path was probably the biggest message that I got from that book. And that's why I say it's required reading.
Yeah, it's definitely assigned reading. It's one of those when you talk about what are the things I'm going to read to help me understand the Black experience. Right. That's it. Grab one of those. It's of the same ilk of The Fire Next Time and Richard Wright's Black Boy and The Invisible Man. It's of those. Yeah, it's the assigned reading list. So throw it in there with any of the Chinua Achebe works. Look, we are well read, brother. It's of that class. So he says something in between the world of me, says a lot of things, but he speaks about his first travel experience. He goes to Paris. I think Paris is his first time going out the country. And Tiny East Coast is actually from Baltimore as well. And he talks about how growing up in an urban environment and growing up in the Baltimore urban environment specifically, you are under constant threat. The black body is under constant threat of harm. And it modifies your ability, your how you navigate the world and how you see the world. And you're constantly scanning environments for threat. And Stu will tell you all this just between growing up between Baltimore and Brooklyn. It's like I am on high alert and anxious all the time. It's probably PTSD, really. And and my life was just always chaotic, right? Like as a child, my mom is ducked in buildings with me because we were ducking from shootouts and not people shooting at us. Back to this narrative that might be forming for trapping sweatsuits up and down 95.
Movie about your mom's life.
Just the environment we're in. So when you're under that constant threat of harm, you can't live a life of ease. There's always tension on you and or within you, and it's exceptionally difficult to relax. So, and then when you're in an unfamiliar environment, it's really difficult to relax. So he's going across the globe, across the Atlantic, does not speak French, I believe, but just people were being nice to him. And in the environments from which we hail, being nice to me is a setup. What are you trying to do to me? You're being nice because you're trying to rob me. And he was navigating the world with that similar worldview. And he said, essentially, it infringed his ability to fully immerse and enjoy the experience his first time because he was just so alarmed or on edge every time or in every step of the trip. And that happened for me as well. And it took a long time until I started traveling solo. So I've traveled to Brazil by myself. I've traveled to Italy by myself, all across the United States by myself. And people always look like, you did what? I went to the desert by myself. But
does Poland count?
No, because I didn't really go by myself.
Okay.
So I went with Renee was there, and then we went to Switzerland after that. But I'm well traveled in it. You calling out stuff I forgot. So the first place we went, to be clear, was Dominican Republic. So, two kids from New York, when you say, let's go out the country, you go to Caribbean island. Right. So, it wasn't like we were going on these grand cultural excursions in the beginning to go look at cities and cultures and eat with the people. No. We were just like, let's find somewhere to go with the beach. But beyond that, we realized the benefit that travel adds to your life. And again, to that, expanding your mindset and expanding how you understand how you understand your own culture by interacting with other cultures and understanding what those underlying tenets and principles are of all cultures, like people's behaviors and patterns and ways of doing things. It's the one thing for me that is the most important. All of that stuff is incredible, but traveling is an opportunity to fill all of that other stuff in. Yeah. You will be more well-spoken when you are faced with having to communicate to people who operate in a different language. Mm-hmm. You are going to be well-dressed when your dress is influenced by other cultures. So my style is very influenced by the places that I've traveled. I go to vintage shops around the world, and I like to buy the clothing of people who have been in that place for centuries if I get a 100-year-old piece, right? But that type of stuff is something that you just will not get unless you travel. So well-traveled that's my chef's kiss. That's my one. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because last episode you talked about the gift of understanding language and being able to decode those things. And then you were like, yeah, you'll be well-spoken if you can. You also have a predisposition in terms of a gift that allows for that to be a lot easier for you.
I mean, but that's back to, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this episode, because we joked about it and made light of it a couple times, but Morehouse very much is that Xavier school for gifted Negroes that we joked about last episode. And because of that, you're just around of other people who have these gifts and you just find out how to learn. So yes, I will not downplay the fact that I do have a gift for language, but it was still amplified by traveling across the globe. Yeah. And I haven't been to that many places. Like, I mean, I'm not that person. I need to go to 30 countries by age 30. I'm not that person.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah. But yeah, just in general, I thought that the traveling, and I didn't travel, as I noted earlier, for the first time, even to California, until a company took me and flew me out while I was in school. And that's another benefit of the HBCU experience. And I'll tell the story quickly. I'm looking at the time, but Stu, so please lean in with me and all that. You know the story. I was hitting you up, and so this is senior year. I was interviewing for Google in 2008, and Google's still a baby then, I think, because Google was founded in '99. So they're still from tech. They were coming up on their 10-year mark, and they had just started recruiting at Morehouse. So actually, there weren't a ton of people at that time who had gotten interviews. And some of the homies who are now at Google have been Black Googlers over the years. Yeah. They actually reached out to me for my interview experience. And I didn't get the job, y'all, but I was able to really help them out. So back to Morehouse teaching you brotherhood, lifting as you climb, even though I didn't get the opportunity. So what? Let's make sure that somebody else gets there when they get their foot in the door. So
perfect. Yep.
I go out there, I interview, and they flew us to Mountain View, California, to interview. And it was my first time flying to California, my first time having a company fly me anywhere. I was like, wow, you all just have money to put me on a plane, put me in a hotel, like things that, and this is why to this day, my mom asked me what hotels I stay in when I go places for work. I was like, why? It's normal to me now. I'm like, why do you care about where I'm staying? It's like, she's just like, what kind of rental car did you get? It's just these experiences back to the people back home. It's like, oh no, this is cool to them that we go and do these things, but it's just so normal to us. So at that time, it was not yet normal. And they flew 40 students out. Out of the 40 students, I was the only Black student. There were other people of color, mainly Asian American or Pacific Islander. But I was the only Black student for sure. And I was the only person not from an Ivy. So all the kids from Dartmouth, like Brown, Yale. And they're like, you're from what school? Morehouse?
Morehead State?
Yeah, they're just like, wait. And then I'm telling them about the other places I'm interviewing. I'm interviewing at Deloitte right now, Boeing. We had just done the McKinsey case competition and won that joint. Shout out to Jabron, Calvin Nash, and Hassan. Muscle up.
I remember you winning that joint. I was so proud of y'all, man.
I'm balanced. I had my hands in everything, man. I was in the Morehouse Business Association. I was just trying to do everything to talking with the former Fed Reserve Chairman. I forgot about that. But just trying to.
I got you, bro.
Thank you, man. With Andy Young too, that senior. I killed. That's right. And T.I. Well, did T.I. make it to that panel? I don't know.
Yeah.
Showed up at the art show though.
Yes, sure did. Revolutions.
Yeah, but no. So what were we talking about? Travel, but it was just like they expanded. All these students asking, wait, you went to Morehouse, you have all these people coming to your school. We've never even heard of you. So that also showed me how unique the Morehouse opportunity was. Beyond the traveling aspect and the company taking me places, it was, you all aren't from all of the Ivies. I'm competing with the same students.
Yep.
And that's special. Yeah. And that continues to happen. And when people don't really understand, I think this is the part where I would like you to at least help us with what is the value of the HBCU experience, or maybe the Morehouse experience. It's beyond the 5 wells, but what's kind of one of those big takeaways you have from your Morehouse experience?
Ooh, community. That's the easiest. That's the easiest way to sum up all the benefits that come from, going to Morehouse, from having, Clark Atlanta there, having Spelman there, and that kind of steel sharpens steel kind of mentality, where it's like the greatest example of this community is the fact that you flew out there, you interviewed, and even though you didn't get the job, you came back and you told them, okay, this is the way that it goes. This is the cadence. Like if I was to do it again, here's what I would have done. I would have said more about this. I would have explained more examples about that. That is quite truly most of the HBCU experience. But, for kids like us that, were only children that grew up in single parent households and, watched that person do the best that they could do to make sure that we had a great opportunity at life. Morehouse is like the perfect bookend to your early adulthood experiences, because that still happens today. There's not a city in America that I worry about not having a place to go lay my head. There is a Spellhouse person in one of those cities.
Absolutely.
And that is,
and now at this age, not just America, abroad as well.
Not just America. That's a great point. London. I mean, all these different places. You're right.
Here comes the London boy.
I mean, anywhere you could think of. They're in Dubai. They're in, wherever Kenya. I know people in Kenya. And I would say that resource is just so important. It's a resource that other communities have that that we've never really been afforded, right? This is kind of a new thing. We were that kind of generation to be more in corporate America, to be we have multiple degrees and people are in these high ranking positions. Even right now, as I'm in transition with work, it's Spellhouse people that are coming to the rescue that are like, yo, I know so and so, who can I put you in touch? Great example. Kadir Berry stayed in the dorm with us, Graves Hall.
Fourth floor.
Fourth floor. That's right. Reached out to me on LinkedIn, just like, hey man, I heard about what's going on at Twitter. He once worked at Twitter and was like, hey, if there's anything I can do, let me know. Have you seen anybody in my network, or, send me your resume. I can help push that out there. That's the kind of thing that I talk about when I talk about community, is like everybody is down to help everybody no matter what is going on. And it's a very special community to be in and to be able to, give, but also to receive that support as well.
Yeah, and the big C community is important, right? I always say like there's big C, little C community, but it's the perfect. It's your network is your net worth defined, but because we say community, it doesn't feel disingenuous like that. You know, people like network sounds
networking.
gross.
Yeah, it feels gross.
This is not, and it is our network, but it's more so the fabric of our community and the values to which we all align that help us to build community together and sustain and maintain that community is what makes it different than it just being our network. Right. And I'm aligned to you. That's one of the best things about the HBCU experience to me, in addition to just being loved on for 4 years in a way that no other place will ever love on you. And it prepares you for a world that is not set up for you to succeed.
That's right.
And when we talk about institution, like when I said earlier, I'm really good at being institutionalized, right? It's people like, what do you learn at HBCU? Just black stuff? It's like, I read the same stuff you all read. But there's no black math. We're taking calculus just like anybody else.
Just like, right. That's right. Good point.
It's just like, that's just a thing, man. Like,
be sick.
What's the Chinese arithmetic? Is that the Rakim song?
Yes.
We're not even old enough to really know those songs, but
because of where we grew up, we do.
That's the thing. Like, we're reading the same kind of stuff y'all are reading, same kind of English. We are also reading the classics, but it is one of those things where the intentionality in shaping and caring for Black students and Black humans who are about to be Black adults in the world. Yeah, it's and especially at a formative time. So learning about community, learning to go and build, learning entrepreneurship, learning to, back to President Franklin, what he ushered in, right? Be a Renaissance man with a social conscience. So even that, the social conscience part brings in and evokes community instantly. And the Renaissance man talks to his being well balanced. Like Stew and I are corporate leaders, we have podcast. Stew produces the podcast. That's important to note. The clothing design thing, right? We spread our, or your yoga bay. I just saw, I meant to like that joint, but my bad if I didn't like it, Audrey. But I saw Audrey posted earlier today about, because the reason I did like it, because I took the time to go laugh at. I was laughing so hard that you were yoga bay and turned around like this with your back. But Stew is a tantric yoga guy as well. So that's a lot of balance.
That's a lot of balance.
Don't be out here blushing, man. You be out there oiled up in CBD oils. Now you want to sit here and blush on the air. Okay, but that's balanced, like legitimately.
My back has never felt so great.
All right, so I do want to. I'm looking at the time here
before you finish, because I do want to point something out. You said something that triggered a thought in my mind, and with everything that's happened in the last, pretty much forever, right? In terms of, the black body is not assaulted, but is under attack.
Under constant threat of harm. Yeah.
Constant threat of harm. Almost always, Morehouse was the one place where, and I don't know that I'll ever be able to recapture that level of security and safety for being where we were. It was the time that we could absolutely be ourselves before having to go into the world where we had to either contort, as we talked about in the last episode, or, put that corporate mask on. Morehouse was a place to have those tough conversations about the world, some of the things we've gone through, our perspective, and not have to feel judged. Like, I never worried about participating in class. Like, I was just letting it fly because I was engaged in the conversation, and I learned a lot too. It was great because you weren't alone. You weren't that only smart black kid in these classes. Like, it was like this dude's number one in math in the city of Dallas, and this dude is, what I'm saying? Like, everybody is cold. Like, everybody is brilliant in their own way. Like,
so
remember Ace? Like, Ace is a math wizard.
This is man, we're aligned, right? We here. So what I was about to ask you is, who are your Morehouse goats in our class?
Oh, Ace is up there.
Of the kids so Anton Webb is a goat.
Yep.
You know Anton Webb?
Yep.
Anton Webb, his mind, like, dude. And okay, so it's important for me to state this because, as Stu said, we're all smart kids. And when we talked about he said the sword, iron sharpening iron. I looked at all of my contemporaries at the time, and it's important to call them contemporaries too, instead of just my peers. They were whetstones, and everybody was sharpening each other. And it's just like, when everyone's well spoken, that's even like you. My wife asked me a couple of days ago. She was talking about how I just crack on people. Like, look, when you're around 500 black men in the cafeteria, and they all have the gift of gab, you just have to be sharp. That's what we're around. So, who are your, like, I say that to say, as a smarty-arty myself, if I'm saying I'm impressed with someone, I am impressed. Yeah. And that was the thing about Morehouse. Like, I know I'm smart, but you're looking around like, these guys are brilliant. Like, wow. So Anton Webb, Dabney Zanders.
I ran into him recently. Yep. Really smart guy.
Ed Coffey.
Yep.
Ace Boogie for sure.
Ace Boogie is up there for me, bro.
There's probably some more that didn't just come to mind immediately.
Man,
but
Rick Jackson, Action Jackson.
I never had classes with Rick.
Brilliant. Did you say?
I never had classes with Rick.
He was always ahead of me in classes. He was like my tutor. Like, he would help me learn, like, simply just drill down to the actual basics, and like without all of the fluff stuff. It's like, look, I like him. He was really good at analogies, and it helped me learn things a lot quicker. He's one. Dr. Brian.
And now y'all on the school board together.
I've never seen somebody party so hard and work so hard. Like, he's so disciplined in that way. I respect him.
Has always been able to do both.
Has always been able to compartmentalize and get his shit done. And I always appreciate that.
All right, that wasn't 5, but we'll just go with that. So, but but just there were so many impressive people there. So when I'm thinking about other key things, looking at this time here, because me and Stu won't pay for extra time, so we only have a certain amount of minutes we can give y'all. So I'm looking at, but look, that's teaching us to be well balanced, keep those accounts balanced. So
that's right.
When I think about other major lessons from Morehouse, or major takeaways, it was pie theory, and I have some issues with it now, but it is what it is. And back to understanding the systems that play in the world. The pie theory was taught to me by Dr. Hollingsworth, and He told it to me when I was knocking down doors with my mom. She's walking all across the campus with her cane. And we're like, look, I just got a 4.0 last semester and I'm still broke. And that's after taking a semester off where I had to go back to Brooklyn and see that's not where I want to be. And we need this money. Like, look at I brought my transcripts to him and said, look at how good I'm doing in this place with no money. What can we find? And that's when he got me an Oprah scholarship. So that's what, and this is the Singing for Supper. So that's what got me on the Oprah show in 2011 or whatever. So I got Oprah money. And then he said, and we got some money from Boeing. So the reason I'm at Boeing today is that literally because he said, we got some money from Boeing. We can give you $7,500 a year from them. But here's what you're going to do. Have you ever heard of the pie theory, son? I said, no. He said, well, it means performance, image, and exposure. And you have the performance clearly. I'm looking at your grades. But if you don't look the part and you're not exposed to the right people, you're never going to get to where you want to go in life. So the image thing is where I struggle. He did. So like he put me in the system, the farm system. Like, we're going to see you in some polos and you're going to join the Morehouse Business Association. And then you're going to take a position of leadership in the business association. And it is literally the system. The pie theory is the way to crack. And by the way, Dr. Hollingsworth is a white man. And that's
was a white man.
Right. But like, that's the thing to note as well, just for several reasons. But just to debunk if there is a myth out there that it's only black people teaching at HBCUs.
There's a lot of white professors.
Yeah. And with that, right, that helps you because I need some of the viewpoints that white privilege will afford people who are not black.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad that I was able to obtain that.
That's the balance. No question. So again, people loving on us and preparing us for a world that's not structured for us. He helped us in that way. So I don't know if the pie theory is part of the general cultural milieu at Morehouse, or if it's a well-known thing everywhere in the world. But that pie theory, I know, is in all the systems that play in this world. Like it underpins. It's just running through all of that stuff. So performance, image, and exposure, you can kill it. But if you don't, like, you can be the best ball player ever. But really, if they're like, man, we can't make you a superstar in the NBA because you don't look the part and you're fighting with people all the time like that, you got to fit it. And then the exposure is like, well, you could be great, but if they don't know about you and you're not making it on ESPN, right, you're just not getting exposed to the right things to put you on the path to exhibit your greatness in front of many people. So that pie theory. Go ahead. That's a great lesson to learn before going into corporate America. Like, no question. And I think, you spend a lot of time and I think culturally we do this too, definitely more than other people from other races when they're in the workplace where, they're constantly telling their bosses what they're doing and how they're doing it and what the results are and all these different things. And we, in our minds, sometimes it's like, well, if I'm here at 8 a.m. every morning and I'm crushing it, like they should know it's time for me to be promoted. But the pie theory, it tells you, no, that's not necessarily that's not what it's all about. Sometimes
and that problem is often probably the exposure part.
Right. Because some people aren't even that dope performance wise, but they got the image and exposure stuff down.
They have sponsorship.
And sponsorship. They use those last two to do that. And so we usually get to that game a little. This is why we go back and speak to those classes, because we want to arm them with the things that were potential / slight blind spots in our matriculation through our corporate kind of experience. So that's a huge point. So I thank you for calling that one out. Really quickly.
Oh, my bad.
Go ahead.
Because you started with your biggest lesson. That was your biggest takeaway, was the community thing.
Oh, I thought that was the biggest asset.
Whatever, you can say more. Here's where I'm going after. Look, so y'all, this is where we're just going to tell you how we're working on the fly here. So this is where I'm going after this. I want to hear things that, and looking at the time again, I want to hear things that I don't want us to come and just give this sanitized view of Morehouse. We kind of talked about the funding thing, but is there anything else that you feel you wish you didn't pick up in Morehouse? So you choose what you want to answer. You could go down your path. I'm going to answer what I wish I didn't pick up in Morehouse.
The thing I wish I wish I didn't have to work so hard to finish that school. That's the one thing. I don't know that that's one thing I picked up. But I mean, I would say the biggest thing that I learned, but it was a double-edged sword, was that anxiety behind trying to make sure things are paid, because that felt like such a it felt like something I was carrying my whole life. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was, Catholic school when I was a kid and being financial there, and it just doesn't feel great to not have those resources and to have to
even
work.
know the term being financial, like that's
that
in your brain now.
It looms large. I think for me now, that's why I value being able to pay bills, as we started at the beginning of this, because like to have it and to know you have it and to be able to say, here, take it, and to not have to think twice about it is
a blessing to have. It is.
It's generational. Like at this point, to be able to do that is an accomplishment. And from those lessons, outside of the anxiety that I picked up of those things, all you need is one yes. All you needed was Dr. Hollingsworth to give you one yes to help kind of push the ball down the field and live to fight another day. And that's a lesson that I really appreciate that I learned. I wish I didn't have to learn it so difficultly at such a young age, but here we are. And it does serve for other things. And I will say, I want to honor Dr. Mormon, who was one of the toughest professors at Morehouse College during the time. Taught me a lot about life. Some of the things that I use in terms of looking at companies right now, today, I still employ those methods that he bestowed upon us all those many years ago. So one of his biggest quotes was, "In God we trust, all others must bring the data." And I appreciate that so much, because it's like, look, you have theories, all these other things. You got to bring some facts to this. You got to bring some numbers. You got to bring some kind of research to bolster your argument. And it was one of the biggest things that I was able to take away and still use today.
I didn't have a big takeaway quote. Now you make all right. So I'll quote a teacher real quick, because I thought all of that was incredible. And I did not take Dr. Mormon's class, but there was, and this is a really small niche class in the business department, but business law. And his name was Kenneth Torrance, I believe it.
That's a Drayton.
Okay. Kenneth Torrance, I think, was the professor's name. And just shortly, his excellence is his own reward. I killed something. People would hey, man, I thought I would get more credit for this. And he'd be like, excellence is his own reward. Then it's just flat out, okay, yeah, you did great. So what?
That is so Morehouse.
Yeah. So just a thing that I wish I did not pick up in Morehouse, because I do think it's important to hold us accountable to some of those things that permeate our culture, or at least when we were there, permeated our culture, that weren't so good. And
I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
Calling women the B word, definitely one of them. It was not a thing that I did before getting around a bunch of other black men.
I never did that. I still to this day don't use that word.
Well, I don't use any curse words anymore.
Well, yeah.
Or even the I think Gibran said he didn't use the N word until he got to Morehouse.
I believe that.
And that's another one for a completely different day. I also don't use that word either. But then one of the other things is the toxic productivity that comes with bringing us full circle, the 5 wells, right? And that balance, doing all these things, Morehouse teaches you to be toxically productive. Yeah. It teaches you that everybody out here is extremely talented and a factotum and a magnate and a mogul and doing all of these things. Rise to the occasion. You do the same things. And it's interesting that a place that is teaching us to be well balanced, and now I've seen them move more in the direction of self-care. Yeah. But at that time, it was toxically productive, and you felt as if you were not working on things, Morehouse didn't teach rest. No. We didn't know how. So in my adulthood, I'm very affected by that. And when you take a bunch of overachievers from school, grade school and primary school, and then put them in this system and tell them now keep overachieving, and it is intense. So if anything else, when you are on a search in life to find and maintain that balance, and I like to call it calibration rather than balance, I set it into balance and then I calibrate if it's ever off. I'm a luxury car, but
calibrate equilibrium.
So, once it's set in equilibrium and calibrated, but if you're looking to find that in life, don't feel like you have to constantly achieve and be doing things, because Morehouse taught us that we just had to do, and it's just a constant moving target. So that toxic productivity is a thing that I want people to just be easier on themselves and be kinder to themselves with.
Yeah, that I think we're saying a little bit of the same thing here. That's a great point, especially the being kind. You can burn yourself out, man. I don't think that was something we were privy to when we were in college. That wasn't like a thing. It was just like, no one cares. Keep going. You know what I'm saying? And so
taking 18 credit hours a semester. Because, I graduated in 3.5 years, bro. I took a semester off and still graduated on time because I just overloaded every semester.
And I switched majors. I was computer science. I had switched to business. I had to catch up. I had to get it.
We'll need a part 2.
Off. Huh?
We need a part 2.
I think we do.
Yeah, because like even that. So switching majors is typical at Morehouse.
Yeah,
I was poli-sci then, but back to what's the major that's going to allow me to get out of school and I'll be able to go and do something afterwards because I literally cannot afford to stay in the school any longer.
Same.
So I can't. There were so many students who had to drop out of bio and engineering because they're like, I can't afford to go take this class again because it's so hard.
In the summertime,
the thing too. Like
I'm working.
Yeah, just like I can't. It's you just have. There are these trade-offs and decisions, and I think that we have to hold higher education responsible as well. Don't make it intentionally so difficult that you're just running through students and they're not able to so there are some things there that are nuanced that I would love to talk about in a future episode. But I think we've given y'all our 5 wells. We've given you where we think that we've expanded or where we think we gravitated towards. We've also, in summary, shown you all through demonstration today how we are well-balanced, well-spoken, well-read, well-traveled, and well-dressed.
Well-dressed.
What you got in closing, man? I don't have a closeout. I told you my brain's all over the place.
I am very, though it was difficult, I am very grateful for what I was afforded. And you got to plug in your own HBCU for a lot of this stuff. A lot of the things we talked about are not just, endemic to Morehouse, or Spelman or the AUC or whatever. Shout out to our Clark Atlanta family as well. I feel like they often get left out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I am grateful for what, I look around today and there are a lot of things that you can obviously say, you did yourself, but being in the right company, having the right resources, like these things have to align for you to get to where you need to go in life and to, I'm not saying the journey word, for you to go through the multiple evolutions that you need to go through. This was a great place to find that community, those resources, and that self-awareness enough to strive to be better.
Mic drop. Play us out.
Mic drop. I love it.
Shout out to Morehouse, man. I'm glad I met you there, brother, in 2005.
Me too, man. I still want them dunks, though.
The outro is our well-traveled outro.
Yes. Well-dressed could have been Go Watch.
I had So Fresh, So Clean.
Okay.
I want to do a whole episode on songs that represent the Wells.
Yeah,
and we go back and forth. You bring your 5, I bring my 5, and we see whose tracks are harder.
Yeah, send me in the versus battle, son.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. We're a hip hop podcast as much as we are dudes talking about success and blackness and corporate. Sleep. I had a first class seat this morning too, man. Nice upgrade. Which people look at me with the jury and stuff. They must think I'm a rapper. I am like, nope. I work in corporate America and HR.
Sometimes they would never know.
So I can get home and tell her everywhere that I've been and everything that I've done and tell her that she's the one and
My man.